And welcome to the program, Dr. Rice.
Greetings and welcome. My name is Dr. Johnny Rice II. I'm assistant professor in the Department of Criminal Justice in the College of Behavioral and Social Sciences. The Criminal Justice Club and our department, particularly our college, is excited to welcome you to this professional speakers series. Our distinguished guest this month is Judge Joyette Holmes. We're excited to have the Honorable Judge Holmes with us today for this professional conversation event. This event provides a forum where students, faculty, staff, and guests can engage with criminal justice professionals, learn from our distinguished guests' experiences, and come away inspired to serve. It's anticipated that Judge Holmes will engage in a vibrant dialogue with all who are attending this afternoon and have an opportunity to discuss her professional journey. She has a journey which has shaped her into a distinguished legal professional, and she's done a lot for her respective community. She will share reflections on the Ahmaud Arbery case, where she served as prosecutor and gained national attention based on her role. So I'm really excited to have Judge Holmes here with us today. Before we go further, I would be remiss if I did not introduce our Dean of our College of Behavioral and Social Sciences, Dean Beverly O'Brien. Dean O'Brien is committed to justice, public service, and has been very supportive of all of the programs and clubs under the CBSS umbrella. I'm excited that she was able to carve out time to give some opening remarks this afternoon. As always, it's great to have you with us, Dean O'Brien. We would love to hear from you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Rice, and I appreciate the opportunity, and good evening to everyone. I am Dr. O'Brien, and I'm very excited about the Criminal Justice Club hosting our professional conversation this month. This professional conversation series is something that the College of Behavioral and Social Sciences started some 4 years ago at the suggestion of one of our department chairs. It's an opportunity to bring back those persons who work in the same fields that the department who's hosting them have degrees in. And so in this case, we're talking about a person who is Professor Holmes, who is here talking about criminal justice, who is directly related to our criminal justice program. Each one of our departments sponsors one of these professional conversation series, and we're so excited to have this happening. So thank you, Joyette Holmes. We thank you so much for your presence here today. I thank the Criminal Justice Club and the Department of Criminal Justice, Dr. Rice, Dr. Roden Trader, our chairperson, all of our professors in the Department of Criminal Justice. Thank you for your presence. We're so glad the students are here. Thank you, Dr. Rice, for the opportunity. Enjoy the afternoon.
As always, thank you, Dean O'Brien, for your continued support of our efforts. At this time, I'd like to introduce one of the leaders of Team CJ, our chair, Dr. Jacqueline Rodentrader. We have a quote that goes such as this: "Great minds fight crime." And Dr. Rodentrader and Team CJ, we are committed to ensuring that our students have the opportunity to learn from leaders in the field. And these are leaders who are local, who are national, and also who are global. So at this time, I'm excited to introduce our department chair, Dr. Jacqueline Rodentrader. Dr. Rodentrader.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rice. Pleasant good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Rice, you just stole my closing remark thunder. Nonetheless, Judge Holmes, thank you. Thank you so very much for taking the time to come out this afternoon to edify us in your seminal work as together we pursue justice for all. And our students are sitting under the tutelage of a brilliant mind who they can aspire to be like. And that's part of our mission in Team CJ, is to inspire our learners to have a love of learning and to seek out those persons who have gone before them who are doing seminal work. And I would include you, Judge Holmes, as one such person. And so I'm delighted that you are joining Team CJ this afternoon. I'm looking forward to your presentation, and together great minds will absolutely fight crime. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rodentrader. I'm glad that you continue to encourage our students and to motivate them and to leave no stone unturned as we consider different ways to provide resources and opportunities to them. At this juncture, I want to introduce two individuals. The first person, Mr. Denario Jett, is a student senator, and he also serves as the president of the Criminal Justice Club. Mr. Jett has been a joy to get to know over the past several years. I've seen him develop as a student leader, and he just has a great personality and is always ready to roll up his sleeves and to support not only Team CJ, but other activities across the campus. And so first we'll hear from Mr. Denario Jett, who will give some greetings on behalf of the Criminal Justice Club. Mr. Jett.
Greetings. My name is Denario Jett. I am a senior criminal justice major at the Kappa State University. I'm sorry, a little nervous. First and foremost, I wish that you all are well during this pandemic. We, the members of the Criminal Justice Club, promote positive images of our organization by encouraging criminal justice activities such as community service, spreading friendship and love, and honoring the illustrious Kappa State University heritage and history. We seek undergrad and grad students. Our executive board members of the Criminal Justice Club will participate in community projects, university events, and work with SGA, Student Government Association, to learn the functions and serving in the student body as a whole. Once again, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today, and I really hope that you guys enjoy. You will have a great time without my mind, and just thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jett. And it's okay to be nervous. We all get nervous at times, but it's all about training and training, as they say, training for leadership. And so thank you for those remarks, and we appreciate all that you do. At this juncture, I would also like to give the floor to Ms. Ariana Huffnagel so she can also give some remarks on behalf of the Criminal Justice Club. And just note that Ms. Huffnagel is a member of the ROTC. She is one of our exciting criminal justice scholars who has demonstrated leadership in the classroom as well as on campus. And so we're excited to hear from her. She also is an officer in the Criminal Justice Club, Ms. Ariana Huffnagel. Ms. Huffnagel?
Hello, everybody. Greetings. My name is Ariana Huffnagel. It's an honor to be here. Today, I'll be asking Ms. Holmes questions. So I'm excited to see how this goes, and thanks for having me.
Thank you, Ms. Huffnagel. And again, the two scholars that you've just heard from, they're going to be graduating soon, and so I get somewhat sad when I think about it, but I am excited for them because they've worked hard and they have a path forward in terms of other goals and dreams. But I definitely am appreciative to have watched them evolve over the past several years, and Team CJ, as well as the Coppin campus community, is very proud of them. I would also be remiss if I did not give my colleague, Dr. Laura Anderson, a minute to speak. Dr. Anderson has been instrumental in assisting me in coordinating this event, and she is someone who also shares a passion for educating our students and connecting them to meaningful experiences. And so at this time, I'd like to introduce Dr. Laura Anderson.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rice, and good afternoon to everyone. I am so excited to be here with you all. I know it's going to be a really special and exciting afternoon. Really learning so much about our eminent guest and learning much more about the justice system. What a wonderful opportunity for our students, even at this, late date in the year, to continue to have these opportunities, I think, is just an amazing thing for our club. Thank you to Dr. Rice for his wonderful leadership, to our dean, to our chair. They are absolutely amazing, and I hope that everyone enjoys the afternoon and gets a great deal out of it.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. And now I have the joy of introducing our guest speaker. And I'm going to take this moment to read her bio and then provide some context regarding her being here with us today. And so Judge Holmes, Judge Joyette M. Holmes, is a native of Valdosta, Georgia. After graduating from Valdosta High School, you can get me, Joyette, later. Valdosta High School, Holmes went on to attend the University of Georgia, where she earned dual bachelor degrees in psychology and criminal justice. Holmes went on to earn her law degree from the University of Baltimore School of Law in Maryland. Before her appointment as the Chief Magistrate Judge for the Cobb County Judicial Circuit, Holmes served the citizens of Cobb County and the state of Georgia in numerous roles, including as a prosecutor under District Attorney Victor Reynolds and Solicitor Barry Morgan. Holmes also represented clients in private practice in the law office of Joyette Holmes. Holmes' professional membership includes the Georgia Bar Association, Cobb County Bar Association, and Northwest Georgia Bar Association. Her community involvement includes serving as a board member for Must Ministries and the Cobb County Foundation. She is also a member of the Cobb County Branch of the NAACP, a proud member of Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and Second St. John Full Gospel Church, where she serves as the Scholarship Committee Chair. Holmes was featured as one of Cobb Life's magazine's 20 Rising Stars Under 40 and named as a Woman of Achievement for the Cobb County NAACP. Now, I also want to note that Judge Holmes' professional rise and accomplishments in criminal justice and law are significant. She was elected the first African American and the first woman to serve as magistrate judge in Cobb County, and the first Black woman to become district attorney in Cobb County, which is to be commended. She is married to Bridges Holmes, and they have two beautiful daughters. I've had the pleasure of knowing Judge Holmes since 1999. Her husband is my frat brother, Bridges Holmes, and through him, I've established a relationship with their respective family. And I've had the unique opportunity to, over the years, marvel at the accomplishments of Judge Holmes. So without further ado, I'm going to open up the floor for Ms. Holmes so she can introduce herself as our illustrious president, Dr. Jenkins, would say, the Eagle Nation, the Coppin community. Welcome, Judge Holmes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rice. I appreciate that and that warm introduction. It's my honor, certainly, to be here to speak to the Criminal Justice Club. to Coppin State University. So to Dean Dr. O'Brien, to the chair, Dr. Rodentrader, Mr. Jett, Ms. Hofnagel, and Dr. Anderson, I just say thank you for all that you have done to lay the groundwork for the students to learn and, learn not just the academics of it, but the reality of the work that they are probably looking to pursue. So I'm grateful to be here. Glad to have be able to speak to a group where I started my legal career. Of course, Dr. Rice talked about me attending the University of Baltimore School of Law, but once I graduated from there, I interned with another one of Dr. Rice's line brothers, Judge Paul Smith, who was a judge, is still a judge. He's an acting senior judge now. But Judge Paul Smith took me into his office in the Circuit Court of Baltimore City to be a staff attorney for him before I went on to be a public defender in the Baltimore County court system in Catonsville, Essex, and in Towson. So I began my legal career in Baltimore before moving back to Georgia and doing the things that Dr. Rice talked about. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. For me, the love of the work I do has come from listening and watching people who were doing the things I wanted to do. So I am honored to be here today with y'all.
Thank you, Judge Holmes. We're honored to have you with us. Now, of course, Dr. Anderson and I could ask you questions for the next hour and would love doing such. But this is the Criminal Justice Club event, so it would be only appropriate for Ms. Hofnagel to start us off with some questions. And our first set of questions focus on career. And so, Ms. Hofnagel, I'm going to pass the baton to you.
Yes, sir. Hello, ma'am. The first question will be for you is, please describe your college education and past college experiences. And how did these experiences prepare you for your profession, Ms. Holmes?
Okay, thank you for that. So I went to the University of Georgia for my undergrad career. I kind of always wanted to be a lawyer, and not because I had any experience with the court system or any family members who were lawyers, but because I like the TV show Law and Order, quite frankly. So when I went to college, I knew that I wanted to start in some field that would be helpful as a lawyer, but didn't know what initially. So I actually went to Georgia as an accounting major, but that first math class told the truth, and I was not ready to be in math classes my whole collegiate career. I ended up changing majors to psychology, which, really gave me some insight into what I was interested in and what I thought would continue to hold my passion through law school and in the career. And probably the last year of undergrad, I saw that there was an opportunity to get some practical experience and to add a second major. And so I opted to add criminal justice to that, where I was able to intern in the Cobb County juvenile courts and get that practical experience of being in the courthouse and seeing all the players and what they did, and maybe find my role during that practical internship.
Wow,
so after leaving the University of Georgia, of course, I said I wanted to be a lawyer, but I had fun in college, which I hope all of you have, but remember, you're there for academics. So when I started applying for law school, the top tier law schools that I was initially looking at, they weren't checking for me. But when I tell you, you have a dream and you want to fulfill that dream, you keep pushing. And so I did, and I started at a law school in Michigan. My now husband was living in Baltimore at the time, and I ended up moving to Baltimore. And so that's how I ended up at the University of Baltimore School of Law. And if there's anyone interested in going to law school on this call, I highly recommend the University of Baltimore because of their clinical experiences. You know, learning in the classroom is great. There's a place for it and there's a reason why you have to do that. But being able to get into the space is priceless. It's worth more than you can even imagine when you're deciding on your experience. So that's, you know, my educational journey to becoming a lawyer, you know, a journey that had some twists and turns, but has been a blessing at every step.
Wow, Mrs. Holmes, that was amazing. Thank you so much for that. I definitely learned a lot. I actually have a profile that wants to be in law school, and she's in the phase of trying to figure out which law school to go to.
Yes.
I'll definitely tell her about your experiences and what you recommend. I think she's looking at Atlanta right now, but also the University of Baltimore, because from what I think, you get a full ride if you do these classes for the University of Baltimore. I'm not sure, don't quote me on it, but
yeah, I wish that was my story.
Yes,
it was not my story, but I'm sure there are options that if people are diligent in their search, that they will find opportunities for paid rides to law school, whether it's University of Baltimore or a school in the Atlanta area. There are a number of great ones here.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. The next question will be, can you share with us how you decided to major in criminal justice and pursue the legal profession?
Oh yeah, like I said, the TV show Law and Order was my favorite show. You know, it shows the dichotomy of the investigative side and then the courtroom side. And that was always intriguing to me. You know, you've got one group, you know, what's the intro say? Something about two separate but equal branches. The first investigates the crimes, the other prosecutes the crimes. So that intersection of how public safety is dealt with and then ultimately brought into the court system was just interesting to me. But one of the things that I always talk about, as much as I wanted, and you know, my career has been mostly in the courtroom, as much as I wanted to do that, I was I don't know if shy is the right word, but not a very self-confident child and young woman. So, you know, when people saw that I was in law school and getting ready to start practicing, those who grew up with me were like, what, Joyette? She doesn't, you know, even like to talk. I never hear her argue. She's, you know, very peaceful and likes to work things out. And so I think some people have this perception of lawyers, and I get it, but of lawyers that we are always argumentative and aggressive in that argument. And that's just not the style of law that I practice. You can get things accomplished much better when you do it from a reasonable and level head. You can tactically and strategically do your case and handle the business of the court without being nasty and untrustworthy and things like that. So the interest in criminal justice and moving forward to my career in law, you know, was just about helping people find solutions. And I could do that as a lawyer. And sometimes, you know, people are like, well, you could have done corporate law, you know, sports and entertainment law, anything like that. But, you know, the Constitution provides us with rights that whether you are charged with a crime or a victim of a crime, that there are protections for you. And so being able to work through those constitutional protections in a criminal law perspective was just intriguing to me, and I have enjoyed it.
Wow, that's great to hear, ma'am. Another question would be, what is your advice to someone considering a legal career and the pros and cons that come with it?
Okay. So cons, first, I personally don't find any cons to the practice of law. you have to understand that based on what type of law you opt to go into, it's not glitz and glamour that you see on TV sometimes, or even these lawyers who are on TV, often with families of those who have been victims from police shootings or other things. You see them prominently on the screen. It's not always the glitz and glamour, for sure. There's a lot of hard work. There are ups and downs. There are frustrations that you just have to be prepared for. It is an amazing living for sure, but the type of law you decide to go into kind of determines, based on your priorities, where you are. For me, money has not been the priority. As a criminal defense attorney who works locally, or as a prosecutor or judge, on the grand scale of careers that make a lot of money, working in the public sector, you do not make a lot of money. So what you have to be mindful of when you go to law school and decide to be in a career is to minimize the amount of money that you spend for college. You know, do whatever it is you have to do to have as few loans as possible. I wasn't in a position where I could walk away from law school and not have loans, but I have been fortunate that it has not dictated the type of work I did. Some people come away with $200,000+ of loans, and they can only work in this corporate setting, which will pay enough to pay student loans, but they are miserable because they don't enjoy the work that they are doing. And you want to be able to enjoy the work that you are doing and not be pigeonholed because of decisions that you made from a monetary standpoint. I always have to get that piece in because it's important for moving forward in your career and in your life and having the life that you want to have in that career. But I mean, the pros are that law is vast. What you see on TV does not limit what you can do. There are people who help with, you know, if you have an idea for a design, who help get patents and copyrights for people, people who work in college institutions to give guidance to the professors or give guidance to the athletic departments. There's just a plethora of things that you can use a law degree for that does not deal with the courtroom or what you typically see on TV. So it's a wonderful profession, and it's not limited by just those few things that are common for lawyers to do.
Wow, thank you so much, ma'am. I really appreciate that. And I gain a lot from that as well. But I have a question on my side. So like you said, you watch Law and Order. So is it the same like right now? 'Cause I know like that's the glitz and glam of it, but it's not the hardships of it. Can you say is there a difference?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a difference. I mean, just take, for instance, you never see the selection of juries on a TV show like Law and Order. You don't see a lot of those procedural maneuverings or the fact that it takes months and sometimes years to get from the investigative side of it to the actual court case or hearing. And that's criminal and civil cases, that it just takes time. You know, you're able to see, for instance, the Derek Chauvin trial that has been televised for the last 3-4 weeks. You're able to see inside the courtroom that trial, but you have not seen the months of pretrial motions that have gone on that decides if somebody can, you know, if an expert can actually testify. If that expert testifies, is his testimony limited by something? So there are very much differences in TV law, fictional and nonfiction, because you don't see everything that's happening behind the scenes.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I will pass it on to Dr. Rice. Dr. Rice.
Thank you, Ms. Huffnagel. Excellent questions. And I just want to touch on a couple of key things that I heard. One, Judge Holmes said, going to college and having fun. I think most all students can connect and resonate with that. But also what I found interesting was your acknowledgement of, you may have to change majors or explore other areas, and, getting a second major, just creating opportunities beyond just, one thing, and being able to experiment and figure out what works best for you in terms of interest. I also appreciated the point on finding solutions. Wanted to, understanding what motivates you towards a certain course of study. And we do have a partnership. It's University of Baltimore School of Law, Cobb State University, and other local other HBCUs in the Maryland area who work to prepare our students for law school, and be it through resources for testing and prep, as well as scholarships. That is a real viable thing at Coppin through our connection with the University of Baltimore. So for those students that are serious and dedicated and focused, they have an opportunity maybe to not have as many loans.
That is really good.
Now, I do have a question. What made you pursue a career as a judge, and how did it feel to be the first African-American woman to become magistrate judge in Cobb County, as well as the first Black woman to become district attorney in Cobb County?
Okay, so, we have plans for ourselves, and then God says, let me shake this up because you look comfortable. Let's, do something different. So when we moved back to Georgia, I started as a prosecutor in the solicitor's office. So in Baltimore, the district attorney's office, or in the state of Maryland, the district attorney's office handles all criminal cases, from misdemeanors through felonies. So low-level drug, public intoxication type cases, all the way through murders. In Georgia, it's different in different counties, but a large county like I'm in, you have a solicitor who prosecutes cases, misdemeanors, which are traffic offenses, up to domestic violence, misdemeanor marijuana type cases. And the district attorney's office prosecutes all the felonies or matters that could be sentenced from a year in prison through life in prison. So I started as a prosecutor in the Cobb County Solicitor's Office, and probably a year and a half into that, decided I wanted to have my own legal practice. So I opened my own law firm where I was a solo practitioner. It allowed me to do what I enjoyed, which was represent clients who had been charged with criminal offenses. I did some family law, a little bit of civil, but it was mostly criminal defense. And it also allowed me to raise my really young girls. I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old at that time. And so I was able to do the work of the courtroom and also be at the school to make gingerbread houses if that's what they were doing that day. So being in my own practice afforded me that opportunity. Now, I knew that I wanted to, at some point, take the bench and be a judge, but I don't think I ever thought about how I would get there. Fortunately, I was able to run my practice the way that I thought was best. I can look back now and take into account what others have said to me about doing that with high ethical standards, with great character and with integrity, which certainly gained me a lot of respect from the other judges in Cobb County and from other members of the legal and government community in Cobb County. So in 2012, I decided to run for election as a judge, because most judges are elected positions, but they can also be appointed if somebody leaves early in their term before their election was to come up. So there was a judge retiring. It was an open seat. I decided to run for election, truly stepping out on faith, because I knew nothing about running a campaign, or, you know, who I needed to talk to, how much money I needed to raise, or just the political landscape, period. So when election night came up, we were waiting for returns. I'm one of 4 candidates in the race. The youngest, the only African-American, and the only one who had never run in a campaign before. So get to the end of the night, the 4 of us, the returns come back, and I don't win. And as a matter of fact, I ended up as, you know, with the 4th, you know, the 4th in the total of votes. And for some people, you might say, okay, well, people don't have faith in you, and you should not continue to journey to be a judge, because, you know, just the desire to have you there is not there. But I tell you, running that campaign, being part of that election was the best, and not winning was the best thing for me. It gave me the opportunity to learn more about my community, what the needs truly were, because, you know, you think you know your community, you think you know where there are gaps and where there are needs, but until you really, you know, hit the pavement and talk to people in nonprofits and business and whatever, you really don't know what the needs are. It also taught me that, yes, being in my office, being in the courtroom, being at home for my family is important, but as a member of the community, you have to be vested in the community to right side whatever is wrong side, or at least be a part of the conversation to make things better. And so from that moment, I became very active in other community organizations and nonprofits to serve, you know, in a way different than I was serving in the courtroom. And so Vic Reynolds, who was the district, or who was a private attorney at the time, he also ran for election. He ran to become the district attorney, and he won his race, and he came to me and asked if I would join his team in the DA's office. You know, he saw me practice in the courtroom. He knew what my standards were, how I managed myself in the courtroom, and quite honestly, he knew that there wasn't much diversity in that office. And so I decided to close my practice and go into the DA's office, where I served prosecuting those felony cases until 2015, when I was appointed to serve as chief magistrate judge. Again, the first female to serve in that role, the first African American to serve in that role. And it was an experience that, I mean, I had to walk over to the courthouse today and saw some of my former team members in the magistrate court. It still holds a very special place for me, because here we consider it the ER of the courthouse, the People's Court, and it gave me the opportunity to make a number of policy changes, to program, to do things in the community that people weren't used to seeing the courthouse participate in. And then in 2019, the governor of the state of Georgia appointed Vic to be the director of the Georgia Bureau of Investigations. And I was ultimately appointed to serve as the district attorney. Again, the first female and first African American to serve in that role. And I think that's where I probably I don't want to say made the biggest difference, but in the criminal justice system, people think the judge is the all-powerful one. Well, after the bailiff says all rise and everybody stands up and then everybody sits down. The judge's power kind of ends right there. The district attorney is the person who decides who's going to be charged, what they're going to be charged with, if charges can be reduced, make sentencing recommendations, recommend people for non-court involved resolutions like diversion or accountability court. That's where the influence is. And if you want to make changes, if there are discussions of implicit bias or systemic racism, that's where you can make changes to, even a perception that your community may have and the real needs and the real changes that have to happen. So I was blessed at such a time as I was able to serve in both of those roles to serve. And I've got tools in my toolbox to continue to use in my practice as a partner in a law firm. And I hope I've left tools with those people that I served with over the years.
Well, I want to definitely thank you for kind of sharing that part of your journey, Judge Holmes. I know navigating political waters, running a campaign, those are things that can really stretch you in terms of time and family. And what I found very insightful was, how and it started when you said, you looked at some law schools and, all of them weren't calling you, but that didn't stop you. And it has me thinking also with your first campaign, and you said, hey, it didn't move you forward, but you learned a lot from that.
Yes.
And I think one of the things that we talk to our students about is, overcoming any type of barriers and not letting those barriers stop you from, going forward with with the dreams or goals that you have.
Yeah.
So we've had an exciting opportunity to kind of pepper you with some career panel questions. Even Ms. Hufnagel, she snuck an extra one in there, which was cool. I loved it. And so at this juncture, what we're going to do is we're going to switch from our career panel questions, and we have some legal panel questions. But before we go to that phase, there is a short video clip that we would like to show to our audience.
It's a case that has stoked nationwide protests and calls for justice, the death of Ahmaud Arbery. Joyette Holmes is leading the prosecution.
When this case landed on your desk, did you feel a particular responsibility?
Oh, absolutely. The responsibility was just one of what we do with our cases. I certainly have a sense of community and know what the expectation is of me, not because I'm the district attorney on the case, but because I'm an African-American female.
Holmes is the fourth prosecutor on the case, appointed by Georgia's Attorney General after two previous DAs recused themselves over potential conflicts of interest. Arbery was unarmed, jogging in a South Georgia neighborhood, his family says, when he was followed and killed. One of the suspects told police they pursued because they thought Arbery was a burglary suspect and that Travis McMichael fired when Arbery began to violently attack. Three men now indicted for murder. Arrests came 10 weeks after Arbery's death, only after video became public.
You get upset when you watch it, but as a prosecutor in the case, I have to make sure that I'm following the evidence that is brought to me.
A former chief magistrate judge, now one of just a few black DAs in all of Georgia.
Do you believe that we're at a moment of change, of racial reckoning in this country?
I do. I think everybody's open and ready for the conversation now.
Playing a key role with the world watching. Blaine Alexander, NBC News, Atlanta.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our...
So, in our society right now, there has been several cases, and Judge Holmes, you alluded to the Derek Chauvin case, but there's been several cases that have kind of gripped America, and you have actually had an experience with one of those cases, and I know that when I heard that you were going to be involved with this case, our concern was, and you got a lot of calls, was around safety, right? Can you describe what it was like being selected to serve as the prosecutor on the Ahmaud Arbery case?
Well, it was definitely nerve-wracking. I don't even know if I thought of the safety and security aspect immediately from getting the appointment or receiving the phone call that there was a possibility of that. But it's definitely a heavy thing to have to navigate. Of course, I had seen the video just as everybody else had, not being involved in the case at all. And so when the Attorney General contacted me to inquire on whether I would accept the case and accept the case on behalf of our office, I had to take a pause. There were DAs who were campaigning for this case, which I thought really odd, because unfortunately, some people do things for the notoriety of a thing as opposed to what's right for a thing. And so I almost said no, not because I didn't believe in the mission, not because there wasn't a family who was grieving, who needed somebody who was going to do right by the case, but because there were so many people making political issue of the case and appointments and just everything related to it. And I did not want anything to be a distraction from finding justice in that case. But just as I said, there was a family on the other side of that violence. I knew that I could handle it. I knew that my office was completely equipped to handle it and that they would do right by finding justice. So even where I could have said yes or said no, I did not think it would be proper to say no because I knew we could do it. That family, Miss Wanda, Mr. Marcus, Ahmaud's parents, had been through so much already with the turmoil in the law enforcement community, in the prosecutor's offices that had touched that case, that I'm grateful the trust that they did not have, that they gained in my representation in our offices handling of that case. From that point to the juncture where I left the Cobb DA's office after the election, or the November 2020 election. But yes, probably 2-3 hours after the announcement, I realized that the safety and the security of my family and my team would also be at issue. No matter how weighted you think a situation is right on the side of the victim, there are going to be people who are, heavily opposed to any legal interference in a case like that. People are polarized on the issue of race and what they believe of, and I can say as an African-American woman, about African-Americans in neighborhoods where they may not look like the majority of the population. And so people really on both sides sent nasty things to my home, to the office, around on social media. So there was a time where my family and I were not on social media at all, that we had protection at the home and at the office. But it's an experience because of the relationship with that family that I would not change a thing about it. The city of Brunswick, though hurt and reeling over what happened, was very united in wanting to keep peace and wanting to make sure that what needed to be done in that courtroom was done. You know, you saw violence in a number of places, and you know, even heavy protesting. But in the city of Brunswick, there was not the violence, and that's where the crime occurred. So the city leaders did a great job in ensuring that whatever their internal belief or struggle was about what happened on that day, that they were going to make sure that the process worked from that point on.
Thank you, Judge Holmes. And to continue with our legal panel questions, I'm going to transition to my colleague, Dr. Anderson.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rice. And Judge Holmes, it's just an absolute honor to talk to you. And I'm actually, one of my questions focuses more on the legacy of the Arbery case, as well as the Chauvin case. And I'm sort of wondering what you think the ultimate impact on the legal system will be of these two cases.
I mean, significant impact. You know, certainly as the former prosecutor in the Arbery case, I can be biased and say that a verdict other than a verdict of guilty against the three defendants in that case, I think will change the dynamic that anybody can do anything without meeting consequences for the harm that they've done to a community. You know, one of the statements made in in the preliminary hearing for the three defendants, one of the attorneys said, any American patriot would do what these defendants did. And so there has to be a reckoning and a realization that it's not okay. And we can't continue to night after night hear of situations where, as educated people, we see is not right and can't continue to go on, that our criminal justice, you know, it's not just about our criminal justice system, but, you know, if we can be the influencers, and you know, I say we, I'm not really in that practice right now, but being the influencers in making changes will make a difference. And I think the outcome of these cases will speak to that. And unfortunately, whatever the outcome, it's going to speak loudly to where we are in the conversation. One of the things that I did in the DA's office was to kind of bring the team back to basics. You know, when you hear prosecutors talk on these talk shows or news networks, they're always like, I had 100% conviction rate or whatever the case may be. Well, the Code of Ethics for a prosecutor says that conviction should not be the goal, that the goal should be to be ministers of justice, which means that we have to be intimately involved in the prevention, education, and restoration of people coming into or being around court-involved situations or law enforcement-involved situations. And when we do that, when we become part of the community and show, look, this is what we are working towards, and I'll probably get into this a little bit later with a question, but we're not going to make any changes inside of the system until we are in the community and really recognizing where the perception of a system that's implicitly biased and systemically racist comes from. It's not a saying, like I told my prosecutors, no one's saying that you are racist or that you have a bias. It is the foundation upon which we make decisions in the cases. As a former defense attorney, I can say that there are situations that I have tried to negotiate things for my client that have not been beneficial and that have not worked for the benefit of reducing people that are on probation or in the prison system. And it's as simple as a prosecutor offering a sentence of 5 to do 1, the client not wanting to go to prison, you going to the prosecutor and saying, well, can we do 7 years of probation instead of any in custody time? Well, the client got what they want and that they didn't go to prison for any period of time, but now they're under the thumb of a criminal justice system that is not helpful for employment, education, or housing for 7 years. So, you know, there are things that we all have to learn. We have to go back to basics and recognize the harm in certain processes that we've just been operating under forever, versus what we can do to change the narrative, especially when we have cases like Ahmaud's case or George Floyd's case.
Thank you so much for that answer, Judge. And I think that that's such an important thing to note, that, you know, system is based on such an overwhelming amount of bias, and that I believe Greg is the father and Travis is the son in this case. Greg is actually a longtime investigator for one of the offices in Georgia. And so it's very chilling that he's a longtime law enforcement agent.
Yes.
So just speaks to some of the issues that, you know, you bring up, that someone absolutely could, you know, find themselves in the purview of the criminal justice system with someone who didn't act like this, you know, that, I mean, it brings into question every single arrest that he's ever done, I would think, just knowing what he's capable of.
And he worked for a shorter time as a police officer in Glenn County, but he was a longtime investigator in that local district attorney's office. And you know, anything that I say about this case would be things that are already publicly known. But in having been in those offices, his first calls from the scene were to people that he felt could influence his outcomes on that day. Things that happened at the scene and being released, whereas other people would be held, you know, immediately for questioning, they were allowed to do differently. And so, yes, the fact that he was a long-term investigator it's really scary to think about how that impacted, you know, one, mom not even knowing what really happened to her son for several months. Now, she had been told that he was shot breaking into a home. So she's got a picture of her son inside somebody's house, stealing items and being shot while inside somebody's house for months until the video was released in May. So that definitely a scary prospect of how that could happen, you know, in 2020.
Absolutely. It's horrific, and, you know, hopefully justice will be done in this case and in the Chauvin case. Switching gears to some of your other cases, your other very legally significant cases and celebrated cases, we were, you know, wondering about if you could share some of those with us today, some cases that, you know, stand out in your memory as well.
Yeah, so, I mean, there are a number of those cases, and for me, cases stand out not necessarily for the media attention they may have received, but in celebrating our office and the team doing the right thing despite what people believe should be done. There, you know, are cases that I inherited in the DA's office. One such was one that did have some local public attention, which was a call for a terroristic threat at an IHOP restaurant, where the defendant ended up, or the guy who the police was called on, ended up going into custody for a plethora of charges, including aggravated assault on a police officer, trying to take the officer's weapon, and a number of different things. That case went on for a while, waiting for a specific ruling on one issue related to the case. But when one of the prosecutors learned that one of the main officers involved had some issues related to his law enforcement certification and his career, came to me about dismissing that case. And, you know, when there's this balance between law enforcement who serve as witnesses in your cases and making sure that the community can continue to trust the process and what we are doing, for a young prosecutor, that can be a hard, you know, decision to make. And so I think the cases that stand out most to me are those situations where you see development in prosecutors who are there because they are upholding that minister of justice creed, not, you know, I've got to get this conviction. I've got to make a name for myself. This is a high profile case. It's getting media attention. You know, I'm going to go no holds barred and get this conviction, even when it might not be right. So as, you know, as a prosecutor, especially as the DA that led the office, those are the types of cases that I think about. As a defense attorney, it's often, you know, the case where most times as a defense attorney, your client is charged with things that while they may not have been, you know, guilty of a felony theft, a misdemeanor theft is appropriate. They may not have been guilty of an aggravated assault, but a simple battery might have been appropriate. So you're, as a defense attorney, oftentimes working to reduce the impact for your client. But I had a number of cases like where I knew my client had not done what they were charged with doing and had to go to trial to show that. And that's a scary prospect for any defendant because you never know what a jury is going to do. But, you know, I was fortunate to have juries find not guilty in those cases, knowing that I did not believe in the guilt of my client. Because yes, you do know a lot of times that your clients have done what they're accused of, but maybe not to the level that they were charged with. But these were people that I knew had been charged improperly, and we went to the mat to ensure that they were not convicted of those cases. So those are the ones that impact me as a defense attorney. And I have one recent situation as a judge. A young lady emailed me 2 weeks ago to say that I was the judge who heard her case. She had been charged with possession of methamphetamine. And she said that people were telling her that judges don't care. They don't, you know, they're just going through the motions to complete the case and move a case off of their docket. And she expressed that I had broken that mold for her, and that 6 years later, she, you know, she was clean. She had been clean every day of those 6 years, had employment, had housing, had a future that she didn't see for herself. So those are, as a judge, you only see the people who come back because they've been charged again. So to hear from somebody who found success after having been involved in the court system was great. So those are the things I typically look to outside of, you know, these nationally highlighted cases.
Absolutely. I mean, that's just an amazing story and such an affirmation of your courtroom style and humanity. And that's a beautiful story. So moving. On the other end of the spectrum, those who have been lost to violence, I do have a question about that since it's National Crime Victims Week. What is your thought about how we can best honor those who have been lost to violence, since the specter of Ahmaud Arbery hangs over, you know, the last couple of questions that we've asked? George Floyd is obviously omnipresent in our event today. We're waiting for a verdict. How can we honor the lost?
So we, when I was in the Cobb DA's office, and this is a tradition that preceded my term over there, we have a wall that said we should never forget. And under that wall were pictures in life of victims whose cases we had done within the courthouse. And it's important that we never forget, not just as prosecutors, but as members of the community, because those are your neighbors, maybe your cousin, maybe your son, maybe somebody's mother, your faith community member. And public safety is an important aspect to everybody. There's a push against law enforcement, but I think what everybody wants is a safe community to live in, safe from, crime on the street, safe from law enforcement who are not doing the right thing. And so when we think about the victims, especially of violent crime, it's remembering that there's still family out there. Cobb County is very good for creating programs and opportunities for the families of murder victims and victims of domestic violence to speak their truth, to speak their hurt and their anguish, so that it's therapeutic for them, but also that family who's not ready to share, they hear that they are not alone and there's a place for them. And so with National Crime Victims Week, its intent is to bring awareness to victims, and again, not just to violent crimes, but anything that may place them in that situation, to give them awareness for resources that are out there, for help, to have conversations, or to meet people who are similarly situated. So that's an important piece, certainly, of what we do or what is done in a prosecutor's office, certainly to push forward the mission of, what it is, the responsibility is.
Thank you so much for that, Judge. I think that's so important to remember, that there's families out there who are suffering every day, and that the people who are lost were not just victims of crime. They were fully formed human beings who had hopes and dreams and everything else that were, taken from them. And I thought that the prosecutor and the George Floyd case did an amazing job, I think, in his opening argument when he was saying that this is not just an object of police brutality. This is, a man, he was saying he loved to play basketball, to still work out a bit, and, he had kids, and just, it was such a moving presentation. I think that's so important with victims of violence to remember, the happy times and all of that. And so definitely thank you so much for that. And with that, I bring Ms. Hufnagel back into the conversation.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Holmes, your legal career has been historic to date. What is your next chapter?
So I am currently a partner in a law firm, Gregory Doyle, Calhoun and Rogers. And in that law firm, I've been blessed to join a group who is passionate about what I'm passionate about. So, you can go into any place and do a job. But when that place is eager to help you support what you're passionate about, then you found the right spot. So our firm does a lot of corporate litigation, so no criminal work at all. But I started this umbrella program in September, Labor Day of 2019, called Project Restore 360. And a part of that project is youth empowerment and criminal justice reform. So while I am not professionally working as a lawyer in the criminal courtrooms, I am still very much vested in finding opportunities for restoration. Public safety can't be a priority if we're not ensuring that even the people who have been impacted by the criminal justice system, that they're able to be restored. Because what happens when somebody gets sentenced to 10 years in prison? What happens on that 10th year or the first day of that 11th year? Well, they're out of custody, no job, maybe no housing, no opportunity to further their education. So what programs are out there or within the prison system or even externally that's going to help that person to not recidivate and not be back in the court system? Because when they move back into, re-entry into society, they are moving back in with their mother who lives next door to you. They are serving at a local restaurant that you go to once a week. They are in the faith communities where you are serving. And so as part of the community, what we're doing with Project Restore 360 is making sure that there are opportunities that don't lead somebody back down a path that they really don't want to go back down, but may not see any option because all the doors are closed. Or even for those people who were charged with a crime, never convicted, but that mark on their history is keeping them from that employment, working to clear that from their records. And going into the school systems and showing what opportunities look like that they may not otherwise see. So I'm still very involved with criminal justice reform and youth empowerment through that umbrella program, which we're working to become a nonprofit of Project Restore 360. And my firm is very supportive of that and, allowing me the opportunity to speak to the Criminal Justice Club of Coppin State and a number of other great organizations. So that's what, my right now looks like. I am still on a journey. I call it, and I ask that you continue to journey with Joyette, see what I'm doing next. If there are opportunities to serve in places and spaces where you serve, I would love to be a part of that as well.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. I appreciate it. Dr. Anderson, back to you as well.
Oh, fantastic. And now I just quickly am asking Dr. Rice, do we have time for any more questions or should we at this point turn it over to the body for questions?
You're muted. Dr. Rice, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. You missed some great stuff I just said. We can, if you can, Dr. Anderson, just read out loud Dr. Burley's question, and then we can open the floor up for any comments anyone else may have. Any questions?
Okay, perfect. And I see that Sergeant Brown has his hand up as well. So reading first Dr. Burley's question, if I can get back in there.
Okay, I can take care of it right now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Doctor.
So my colleague, Dr. Burley, in the Department of Social Work under our CBS College of Behavioral Social Sciences umbrella, she has a question. Well, I'll read her comment as well. She says, thanks for being with us today, Judge Holmes, and sharing your reflections on the Ahmaud Arbery case. It's truly an honor and a privilege to hear your perspective. Please talk to us about self-care, specifically how you have maintained your sanity and well-being throughout so many difficult cases. Additionally, how has your work affected your family and personal relationships?
Thank you, Dr. Burley, for that question. So I chuckle a little because I am still working on the self-care piece. I have not really found, what my outlet is. Probably for the last 6 years, since right before I was appointed as Chief Magistrate Judge in 2015, I have been running nonstop. The Chief Magistrate position is an elected position, as the DA's office is an elected position. And when I took over both of those roles, the campaigns were immediate. So it was every day of the work of the community organizing, of the campaigning, and certainly, as I mentioned it last, but it's certainly first, maintaining relationships with my family, with my girls, with my husband. My mom lives with us. And it's, balance is not the right word because there's no balance for it really, but it's understanding when each one needs to take priority over the other. I know that my family, so with the DA's role, I started that in 2019 and did not get reelected at the end of 2020. And I can tell you that my children were relieved. They would have never said that to me as I served, but I think they could see the weight of the world lifted from my shoulders. It was not an easy role to be in, though I would do it all over again, because it matters, because there was so much impact that could happen from that space. The sanity, I think, just comes from the love of my family and the support of, my team and the people around me. But what I absolutely knew at that time, but recognize even more so, is that the mission is not about the position. Mm-hmm. What you have in your heart and in your mind to do and how you want to serve is about what's in your heart and in your mind. It's not about a title. It's not about a role. And so I am grateful that I've been able to continue to serve towards the mission of ensuring fairness in the courts, of empowering youth around, and being able to do it from a different space. That was not the intent, but that is certainly the path that God has put me on. And so I am faithful in that and know that there is a reason for why I was there, during a pandemic, with the Arbery case going on, with social unrest during a time that we were all forced to kind of sit down, watch, and listen. I know that I was there for such a time as that. So I am grateful in that. And the sanity just comes from realizing that.
Thank you, Judge Holmes. And it looks like we have 3 hands up. We have first Mr. Sergeant Johnny Brown. We have Dr. Claudia Nelson, and we also have Angel, who's a guest. So, Mr. Brown?
Yes, Judge Holmes, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity and those that also made this possible. I'm glad that everybody's safe that's here, for one thing. But most of all, it's I think I really thank you all that sincerely do your job. You have people that are in positions that are not really doing their jobs, that are not really interested in the people themselves. It's about, doing that 9 to 5, and having that paycheck. And that's one of the issues within our society. Mm-hmm. But from working from Baltimore City Housing Authority for years, I've been, a police officer over 22 years now. Okay. I worked in some of the core areas of poverty and, and income inequality where it really affected those areas. And I realized that people generally, they have feelings. They have loved ones. I don't care what they do, whether they're, selling drugs or whatever. I talk to these guys. I talk to the addicts. These are people that have loved ones. They're people that have feelings. And I believe that we need to get to the point to where we need to understand each other. I believe that the general public I believe one of the major problems is that the general public does not understand the perspective of policing. They don't understand our job. And that's and from my interacting and talking with them, that's one of the major things. And I also realized that, people are looking for leaders. I would say that 99% of the people are followers. They're looking for someone to follow. And, there's not many people that are really out there that are really putting themselves forward as in putting them in a position to where people can literally follow them. So people are looking for someone to follow, and we need more people to take that stand of advocacy, and just step forward and say, hey, look, let's do this. Let's go this way. Let's block this area. Let's advocate about this. Let's do this. I think that's very important. But most of all, I realized one thing is that I've had this conversation with numerous people, and that is that until we find some type of way to legalize and manage and control drugs, which I believe is probably 90% of the 90% of the crime is revolves around drugs. I don't think that much is going to change. And on top of that, it's going to take the people themselves to take back their neighborhood and to make that change. You know, because I can say that because when I was in McCullough Homes, I was working on something, and I'm gonna say this quickly, and I was trying to figure out how could I rid McCullough Homes of drugs as a single officer, pretty much on the shift. So I kept the vacant units. One thing is about the area. The area was attracting people. So I kept the vacant units, boarded up, try to keep the guys out of the neighborhood from selling the drugs and stuff. But I realized that my most important asset was the people themselves. The people themselves started to speak up once they had trust in the police and in me. They began to speak up and assist me in trying to take back their neighborhood. So overall, it's going to take the people. And it's going to take some changes in the form of drugs and stuff of that nature too. But the people have to do their part too. And that comes through understanding.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, communication is the first step to that. And what I found is that people, they take to their corners and don't want to come out and hear another perspective. And until we can listen to the tough conversation and recognize that we are all wrong to some degree, and how do we figure out how to be right and respectful of all groups and all opinions and all conversations, it's going to be a difficult place to get to. But that's what we definitely have to communicate. It has to be a village. We can't operate in our silos and just think that everything's going to get done if we stay within the walls of the courthouse or our office or, our single beat or whatever to get it done. We have to reach out to business, to nonprofits, to other service organizations, to bring groups together to have hard conversation, not just the surface question that's easy to pivot or answer neatly, but the really tough questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Yes, thank you.
And our next person up is Dr. Claudia Nelson. She's the chairperson for the Department of Applied Social and Political Sciences at Cobb and CBSS. Dr. Nelson. You might be on mute, Dr. Nelson.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rice.
Don't worry, Dr. Nelson. They got me too, so don't feel bad.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Well, I want to thank Criminal Justice Department for this wonderful exchange. Thank you, Ms. Holmes, for your discussion with us today. And I have a different kind of question for you because I am also a citizen of Cobb County. Okay. And and I was excited back in November when I submitted my ballot and we had 4 Black women on there to vote for. So you talked about diversity earlier on. Can you talk about the changing diversity of Cobb County and what is it about this county that you love so much?
So, I cheated a little bit on the first love of Cobb County in that my husband was born and raised in Cobb. So when we decided to move back to Georgia, it was kind of a no-brainer from that aspect. And I also interned in Cobb when I was at the University of Georgia. But since, he talks about growing up in Cobb County, but even since moving back here in 2004, there has been a shift in demographics within the county, which is a great thing. Now, it's always been diverse-ish, let me say, but with people moving out of the city, Cobb County, areas of Cobb County being very out of the city of Atlanta, Cobb County having areas that are very easy to traverse into the city of Atlanta, back and have everything that you want. when you move to a metro area like Atlanta, Cobb County is that place. It's a world destination with, Six Flags, the Braves, the convention centers that we have, and other professional sports teams that are here in Kennesaw State University. But so yes, there has been a change in demographic. Before I became chief magistrate judge, there was only one African American on the bench, and that was Judge Bridget Campbell on the traffic court. Out of 21 other judges on the square, as we call it, there was no one else in the county. So I became the second. And then when I became DA, the chief magistrate judge was no longer an African American. And then this election cycle, we now have 3 commissioners who are African American and 3 elected judges who are African American. But what the challenge was not about the demographic change and the change in diversity, because it was absolutely needed. Just because perspectives are different, and needing different perspectives at the table is always important, no matter what industry you're in. But what happened during this election cycle are that people could care less who you were, that they just wanted to pick their favorite letter of the alphabet. And when we are educating people on voting and elections, we have to not only say you need to register to vote, you need to get out and vote, but you need to be intentional on learning who is asking to serve you in different roles. And so that's the only challenge that we still saw, not just in Cobb County, but in a lot of different places. And I'll speak from my perspective, in that my opponent said to me before the election, right after I was appointed, and after the election, that Joyette, I did not want to be DA. I just wanted you to hire me. But because he chose because of that demographic change, and because of knowing what it was going to look like and outcome of 2020, decided to run anyway, and take the chance. And I knew that that was going to be an issue, but I talked at the very beginning about not shying away from what I believe to be right, and from places that I know I can serve, regardless of what the politics look like. Because it's unfortunate that somebody who can determine how long somebody stays in prison or what they're charged with, that's a partisan elected position. Because no decision made in a courthouse should be impacted by whether you are a Republican or a Democrat. And, so partisan people don't like when I say partisan people, leadership within the county, leadership within the state, don't like to hear me say that party should not matter in those roles. But the truth is the truth, right is right, and no decision made on who should be charged with what should be based on party.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. And we're getting ready to come to the close. Angel's been patiently waiting. And then Ms. Rhonda Goodman, if we could quickly get you in, and then we will close out. But I want to give them a shot. So unless Kelly and Rob Harper shut us down, we have another minute. Go ahead, Angel. You might be on mute. Okay, I can't hear you, Angel, but if you want to type into the chat, you can. And while we're waiting to hear from Angel, Ms. Goodwin, are you prepared to speak? I think Ms. Goodwin also had a comment she wanted to make. Ms. Rhonda Goodwin. Okay.
Dr. Rice, I don't see Rhonda Goodwin on the attendees list. If she's there,
Okay.
please raise your hand.
Yeah. Ms. Kinsler, do you want to share? It might be Ms. Kinsler who's going to share the question, but she put in the chat that Ms. Goodwin had. She was conveying a message for her.
Both Ms. Kinsler and Angel should be able to unmute.
Okay. Angel, you want to unmute? Okay, so we've been patiently waiting, but please put the message in the chat or feel free to email myself and we'll make sure. Ms. Kinsler says not letting her unmute. Can we unmute Ms. Kinsler? Yeah, and Angel, I think she's saying the same thing.
So she has the ability to unmute. I can't unmute her mic.
Okay, so Ms. Kinsler and Angel, if you are unable to, you should be able to see a bar at the top, a little microphone, and you'll have to unmute for us to hear you.
And I put my email address in the chat. So if they want to, ask the question individually, I would love to respond that way.
Okay. Well, it looks like they might have a challenge, but Judge Holmes says she did share her email. Ms. Lewis says, thank you for joining us today. Honorable Judge Holmes, thank you, Team CJ, for putting this discussion on. Well, we're going to have to close out because it's 3:32, and I do want to be respectful of Judge Holmes' time. But I do want to, first and foremost, thank you for your public service, for your commitment, and really having a passion to want to understand what's happening in the community, and also the work that you are vision casting and working on now that looks at justice reform and youth. Those are also issues that we discuss at Coppin that are very critical to us as well. And so on behalf of our university president, Anthony Jenkins, our distinguished Dean Beverly O'Brien, our department chair, Dr. Jacqueline Rodentrader, and most importantly, the students who are the focus, who make up the Criminal Justice Club, and our student leaders, Denario Jett, Ariana Huffnagel, and I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge Dr. Anderson, Kelly Jackson, and Robert Harper for helping us to coordinate this. So it is with a big Coppin clap that we want to thank you. We appreciate you for coming today and sharing. Ms. Holmes, final words.
Yes, thank y'all again for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. All the work that the Criminal Justice Club put into having these conversations, to understanding criminal justice and how you can help in that. I appreciate it. Ms. Huffnagel, my soror, your upcoming graduation, congratulations on what you have been doing, and everyone else on the call, just thank you.
And I do have to say this because I don't want the dean to get me, but of course she is a soror, Dean O'Brien, as well. And
okay, soror Dean Dr. O'Brien, thank you so much.
So hopefully we will, and we have some deltas, of course, that are, Dr. Rodentrader, Dr. Nelson, they would get me if I didn't say that either. But again,
Sisters in service.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And so I want to thank everyone for coming today. And this brings to a formal close this professional series. Please check out the information that Judge Holmes provided for you, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event. Take care. Awesome. Thank you, Dean O'Brien.
Bye. Thank you. Wonderful, Judge Holmes. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. It was my honor for sure.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Well, Johnny, thank you again for thinking about me to be a part of this conversation. I had a fabulous time. Just call on me when you need me.
Will do, and much appreciated. Continue to keep charging forward.
Absolutely. Well, take care. Tell the family I said hello.
Will do.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.